Hi, everybody, and welcome to this very special Toon review show today. I'm delighted to say we are joined by none other than Henry Winter to talk all things Newcastle United and Cup Final. And I'm sure Alex has a few curveballs to throw in somewhere along the line as well. One man we won't be mentioning, of course, is the ex-Newcastle United manager after we were told off quite brutally by Henry last time. It's in the past. But we are looking forward, of course, now, and it's a massive weekend for Newcastle. Henry, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. I know you're a very busy man, obviously, with Champions League going on today as well. So thank you for taking the time to join us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I mean, you guys are the present and the future with the, with the pods and everything that you do, the videos. I mean, it's thank you for having me on. Thanks for having a dinosaur on.
Give up. You're very welcome. Now, obviously, this is a very, very big build-up to the Cup Final for Newcastle United. Probably a bigger build-up than what Man United fans are feeling, simply because Newcastle haven't been there for so long. Haven't won a domestic trophy since 1955. It's a very, very big cup final for Newcastle, Henry.
Well, it's huge. I mean, I live in Peterborough and I get late night trains back when you guys have been down in town for matches. And I know a lot of you drive to Leeds and get the the last train back out of London from London matches. The 23:33 from King's Cross, which is known locally as the Vomit Comet. And I get on after a lot of London matches, and I'm always talking to Newcastle fans. I'm very aware of the passion and the longing and the commitment. And it's not just the fans. It seems that a lot of the staff on LNER are Newcastle fans as well. And whenever I get my ticket inspected, I get a 5-minute update on how brilliant Eddie Howe is and War Flags and how long you've waited and how big this is. Karras is going to turn into Gordon Banks. And I just think it's brilliant. I mean, from a selfish perspective, a journalistic perspective, I love a change of narrative. I saw your Marseille games. I've seen, cup finals for you. I've seen, big clubs, the support stays strong and big. And if anyone deserves a good day out at Wembley, it's you guys.
Yeah. I mean, look, the excitement is massive already. I mean, some Newcastle fans are even down in London already. That's how big it is for us. The savour in the moment. I've seen a few videos from and photographs from Newcastle United fans down in London, just they're doing the Wembley Stadium tours and just getting a real moment and enjoying every second of being down there.
I think Adam P is already there.
Adam P is definitely there. He's done the stadium tour and things like that. I would have been there probably midweek had I not, I've got obviously family commitments and things like that. So, but I'm traveling down by car on Saturday to near where Alex lives, and then we're driving into London on the Sunday, very early Sunday morning, just savor the atmosphere. But it's one of those, Henry, where there'll be thousands of Newcastle fans that don't have tickets that will be traveling down anyway, just to savor the moment, because this is the League Cup's taken a bit of flack in the past and been a sort of not very important to a lot of teams. But I think over the last couple of seasons, managers have treated it a lot more seriously.
Well, yeah, I mean, at all levels. I mean, if you look at of the 26 players who went off to the World Cup with England, quite a few of them had their first experience actually in the League Cup. So I just remove a little friend here, big Newcastle fan. In fact, you mentioned Newcastle fans heading down to London. I've got a flat in London near Arsenal, and 2 Newcastle fans are staying there. I said, do you want it just sort of late Saturday night? And they said, oh no, we're getting down early on the Friday, and I think that's probably one of the later ones. And last game I was at, just sort of going off tangent a bit, but last game I was out at Newcastle, I think that's 10 days ago. I parked in that Granger multi-story car park where I always, because it's just the easiest way when you come across the bridge. And then I bumped into obviously some Newcastle fans. And sorry, this was the semi-final. Right. And a lot of them had already booked. I mean, because you had the good first leg. Was it Southampton, was it? The games were all a blur.
Yes.
You had the good first leg, and they'd already booked train times. They'd already booked hotels. They'd already got, probably restaurant bookings, bar bookings and everything. And I just think that is just talking to them, just that excitement and just the logistics of it all. I mean, it's easy for me because I just rock up in my car. I've got a place near Wembley, it's easy, but just the simple logistics. And I was talking to a couple of them as we just walked up to the ground, and I said, "Well, what are the chances of getting tickets?" And they said it's going to be an absolute chaos. And I mean, you guys would know better than me, but I imagine on some of the ticket exchanges, it's been quite lively because of the huge amount. You probably could. What's your allocation? 35 or so?
30. I think it was 30. 32,
33, I think.
33, near 33.
I mean, I'm betting you could have sold that out 3 times over simply to sort of Newcastle fans. My concern is Club Wembley, as ever with finals, because that central ring there, which has very effectively got the corporates, the debenture holders. I hope those are going, because it would just be shameful if there were empty seats there when Newcastle fans are presumably sitting in fountains in Trafalgar Square, just desperate to.
Well, we've had various issues with the ticket, and to be honest, Henry, there was obviously Newcastle United. They liaised with the trust and things like that to see how best to sell the tickets. So it went into sort of a pot 1, pot 2, pot 3, and then a ballot. So there's actually season ticket holders who didn't make many of the cup games, haven't got tickets, whereas non-season ticket holders who went to a couple of the cup games, they've got tickets. So when it went into a ballot, it was pandemonium, to be honest. But I don't see any other way that they could have done it at present. Obviously, it had to be done very quickly to get the tickets on sale. And look, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people going to miss out on cup finals because, as you say, the allocation is disastrous sometimes at Wembley, and I think the FA Cup final is even worse for corporate seating and things like that. But
the FA Cup final is worse because the FA give tickets to the FA fans. But sorry, explain that to me again. There are season ticket holders who've been to every home game, possibly some of the away games, that haven't gone to the cup games because of whether cost of living, travel, logistics,
family issues, things like that.
They prioritised cup games, especially because the first game was Tranmere away, so we've had a few away games in the cup, so it's quite difficult to have made the trip to all of those, to be fair.
Well, I mean, look, as you say, there's no fair way of doing things, but I would be a bit miffed if I was a season ticket holder and I hadn't had, I wasn't getting priority ahead of someone who wasn't a season ticket holder.
Well, there's been problems with the system as well. Some people have managed to get on, to the booking system, and then they've booked the tickets and gone to the payment system, and it's come back as an error. One of my best friends, it came back an error on his. He used various different cards. He used mine as well, and it still came back an error. So we actually went to the box office, and the box office said it was a problem with your bank. He'd already been to the bank, and unfortunately missed out on a ticket altogether. But again, there's always going to be these instances. I think every club will probably go through when they make finals and things like that. And it's just an unfortunate thing. But, we have to look positively now. I mean, those people without tickets, there is so many going to London anyway, just to savor the moment and be around the Newcastle fans before and after the game. So, there is a plus point to it as well, that they'll still experience the day in London. So, and hats off to them.
Just one thing on that, the whole sort of fan experience and the engagement between the club and sort of obviously listening to fans. Because I know Darren Eales quite well. I've known him for a long time. And I've been over to America when he was at Atlanta. And before one of the games, I went to one of the games with him, and he was as a chief executive. He said, "Well, let's go down and join the fans in the car park. They'll be having barbecues and drinks in the American way in the sunshine." And I said, "I don't think I've ever been with a chief executive before a game and going around and having a Budweiser and a hot dog, just sort of chatting to fans." And he was, they just chanted. He joined in all the games. He knew a lot of their names. Obviously, that's a lot. I mean, they can get sort of like 70, 80,000 for the game. But he knew a lot of the people in there. Obviously, you're a far bigger club and all that. But that his sort of experience and his mindset won't change. That engagement with the fans. And I think if there are ticketing issues, whether for cups or for league or throughout the season, next season you could well be in the Champions League, and the demand will be more. I would trust Darren to address it and to be mindful of it. He's quite a caring guy. He's not.
We've seen that. We've seen that.
He's probably been on with you. I mean, he's a very engaging character, and he is 100% genuine. Good footballer, good chief executive, and just a good bloke.
Well, we can see changes starting to happen anyway. I mean, obviously they bought back Strawberry Place now, so whether that means an extension of the Gallowgate or a fan zone somewhere around the Gallowgate area, that's been talked about as well. So we are seeing change. I just think there's certain aspects of the previous regime still there that just need adjusting, but that's going to take time. Of course it is. So I think that's why, for all there was the upset about people not getting tickets, I think everybody understands that things take time to change, and we will see that in the future. I've got no doubt about that.
Well, ultimately, it's only been 16 months since the takeover, so they can't change everything in the first year. So hopefully, in the summer, we might see some improvements to certain bits of infrastructure and processes. I'm sure there'll be changes.
Do you know what the most impressive thing about the takeover? We've talked before about the takeover and the issues and all that, but they've appointed really well.
Yeah.
Not simply Eddie, but Darren as well, technical director, recruitment as well. I mean, I still think your biggest signing was Kieran Trippier. I just think
he's been magnificent.
I mean, you guys have probably met him. He's a proper character. He's a proper player. He's a proper leader. He's actually got that sort of slight Atletico Madrid, Diego Simeone. Guys, we need to slow this game down here. He's got all those tactical elements of, I mean, you are quite good at time wasting, which is, in a way, it's a compliment. You are building, you've got that now. Kieran Trippier is brilliant at that. He's brilliant at just making sure you win.
I mean, even when he doesn't play very well, his captaincy is incredible. You can see him, pointing and talking on the pitch all the time, and he's just. As soon as he came to the club, he was our captain. I mean, I know Jamal Lascelles played a few games and had the armband, but you could see he was the captain on the pitch. That there was no doubt about. Before we talk about the final, Henry, I just want to ask you about Newcastle's transfer business this winter, in the January just gone, because there's a lot of fans up here very frustrated with what's happened in the window because of obviously the late sale of John Joe Shelvey. It's left us extremely short of midfielders, centre midfielders. Obviously, Shelvey went, Chris Wood went. We didn't really replace those. We brought Anthony Gordon in, obviously, which was a big signing for us, and Harrison Ashby as well, the youngster from West Ham. But were you surprised that we didn't bring in somebody else when Shelvey went?
Well, just one thing on Shelvey. I was there when he returned. He took his daughters on the pitch.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah. It was a lovely moment.
And it was fantastic. And you can, he drove up. He just wanted to come back. And I think if that's a huge compliment, first to him and his character, but also for the club and for the fans, that he wanted to come back and say goodbye, because a lot of players just say, right, I've moved south. That's it. I'm cracking on with things.
Well, they included him in the winner's photo in the dressing room afterwards, even though he wasn't our player anymore, which was very nice.
Yeah, that's terrific. I imagine he'll be at Wembley as well, supporting you. So just coming back to your transfer, I mean, look, Gordon, I didn't quite like the way he left Everton. I thought it was a bit disrespectful to the fans there, but he clearly wanted to move, maybe needed to move, and look, he'll be a good player for you. I just think that what is the point in rushing in and buying a player now who is actually, you're going to have to upgrade in the summer? I understand that logic of let's making sure we nail down that fourth place, and maybe you have to buy a player who just sort of Wood or whoever, as you had, just to sort of get you there. But I just think this is all about planning for the summer. I also get the impression that Newcastle are trying to do the right things with FFP. And what is the point of sort of bringing someone in on a salary who you're then going to offload, and you lose the cost of that, and that affects your FFP rating? So I didn't have a huge problem with that. I've always been. I like the way that Longstaff started for you when he came in, and then I thought he had a dip and he hadn't trained on, and then the games I've seen this season for you, I just think he's been sort of outstanding. So I take your point about central midfield, and you probably do need, you can't afford any injuries in there. But I kind of understand why they're doing that long-term building process rather than getting stopgaps.
Okay, yeah, I mean, look. The point where Alex made the point on various shows that we've done that obviously FFP is very important, and we want to do things the right way. We don't. Newcastle are going to be under scrutiny anyway for FFP because of the wealth that they have. So obviously they're going to be looked at. But things have been done the right way. And we have said that summer is going to be a big summer for Newcastle United, depending on where they finish in the league. I think we'll be in Europe anyway. It's just which European competition. I think once the cup final's out the way, we can then, really go for the Premier League top 4, concentrate on that. Other teams around us obviously have Champions League, etc., still to play. So you never know. But if we move on to the cup final, obviously the major talking point, Henry, is the goalkeeper. It has been a bit of a farce, actually, the way the goalkeeping situation's worked out. Dubravka went to Manchester United on loan. He's played, obviously, in the Carabao Cup for Man United, which means if God help us, they win, he gets a winner's medal. But he's obviously unable to play in the semi-final. Nick Pope obviously got the red card, and Darlow's out on loan at Hull City. You couldn't write the script, really, but it wouldn't be Newcastle United, really, if there wasn't a story before the final. But Loris Karius, if he does play, Henry, has a chance to become an absolute legend at Newcastle and only play one game.
I can see the redemption headlines already. I mean, he was, I covered that final. I was obviously very critical of him. I think Klopp was quite critical afterwards, and obviously they went all out and got Alisson in. I just think maybe it's a sort of slight romantic in me. I love that idea of redemption. I love that narrative of him going there, the biggest stage, the eyes of the world on him, playing one match, playing the match of his life, and walking up those Wembley steps and coming down with a medal. Do they do the? Sometimes they do the presentations on the pitch, but no, I imagine for that one they will go up. Look, he's up against Marcus Rashford, who's in rather good form at the moment, and
just
I see Rashford play the middle with Weghorst slightly off him, and then probably, or maybe Sancho off him, and Fernandes. I mean, you look at that attacking threat that he's got, but in a strange way, he's got nothing to lose because his career was defined by one final. So now he can go out there and just have his career and his life defined by this 90 minutes, 120 minutes, and just sort of delivering. So look, good luck to him, because you speak to a lot of the German journalists, and they say what a good guy he is. And if sport is not about that opportunity, so as one of your former managers, Kevin Keegan, said to Paul Scholes in an England setting, you go out and write the headlines. Just go and you have control of your destiny. And I just think it's brilliant. That's what sport's all about. It's that second chance. It's that shot of redemption. And Loris Karius has got it. He's also got a very good defence in front of him. I mean, you look at those four, I assume it will be Trippier, Schär, Botman and Byrne. That's quite a Hadrian's Wall in front of him, protecting him. So good luck to him, because it will be a fabulous story if he does achieve it.
Do you think in that Champions League final he was slightly concussed? Because he took that blow to the head, didn't he, from Sergio Ramos very early in the game, and he didn't quite look right. And I think if obviously that was a few years ago, and concussion protocol has changed a little bit, I think he probably would have come off in that game had the concussion protocol been around now.
I think you're right. And Sergio Ramos was like a threshing machine in the first 20 minutes, as Mo Salah found as well. So look, absolutely. And in fact, I felt not sort of guilty, but a sort of bit more reflective the day after, when the news emerged that he had suffered a tiny little concussion. And that was, that wasn't an excuse. That's a genuine mitigating factor by the fact that maybe his reactions weren't as quick as they should have been, or some of his decision making wasn't as sharp. So absolutely, you'd have had a concussion sub in those days, and someone else would have come on. So absolutely, it's but what a moment it'll be for him. And look, he's got a manager in Eddie Howe who will keep I love Eddie. I don't often, because when I'm writing a match, I'm sort of doing my rewrite. But with Eddie, I often go in and listen to his press conference afterwards, because he's like the car. I mean, 52,000 of you in the ground, all going crazy. And the man who's like the sort of conductor, the ringmaster, Eddie, he always seems the calmest.
Yeah.
And he will exude that calm. He will fill Karius with confidence. So good luck to him. It's going to be a lot of eyes on him.
Yeah. Alex?
Yeah, well, you mentioned Eddie Howe. Do you think that he's possibly being underrated or undervalued in the current setup by the media? I think I'm personally looking at what's going on right now. I think we might look back in several years to come and appreciate more what he's currently doing. You know, we've been on a 17-game unbeaten run, and that's the third best out of any English manager in the league. With finite resources, we've still got most of the first team names are from pre-takeover, and he's doing some outstanding things. The second loss of the season against Liverpool, only 2 losses, and it feels like he's beating records of Sir Bobby Robson and Kevin Keegan, and it doesn't feel like it's getting possibly enough credit. I feel like it's something we may look back on and praise more in the future than we are doing now as to how good a job he's doing.
I've just quickly written down my top 5 managers of the season in the Premier League, and in no particular order: Steve Cooper, Thomas Frank, Marco Silva, Mikel Arteta, and Eddie Howe. And, you know, we can sort of debate the order. Obviously, Pep and particularly Pep, you know, might have a more of a say as the season goes on. Sorry, Ten Hag. Sorry, I'll have Ten Hag. Can I make it my top 6? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ten Hag's been inspirational at Manchester United. Eddie, I don't think he's underappreciated. I think there's a lot of support for him in the game and in the media when he was out of work. You know, with the job that he did at Bournemouth, he's such an engaging character. He's such a good manager. I interviewed him a couple of times down Bournemouth, and you always came away thinking there's real value to the man, real substance to the man, as well as to the manager as well. I think there's just been, because of what's happened at Newcastle United over the last, 16 months, you say, I think there's been focus on so many different things, whether it's players, whether it's owners, whether it's executive changing, that maybe the focus hasn't been completely on Eddie Howe. But I mean, I talk to fans or I talk to other journalists, everyone says Eddie Howe. You know, he's fantastic. But also maybe because he's not a Jose Mourinho type, and I'm a huge admirer of Mourinho, but he doesn't sort of go around sort of talking about himself. He doesn't say, I'm the special one. He's he's an exceptional but normal one. He's a very grounded,
modest one.
He is a modest one. Like, he'd probably call himself that, or you call himself. I mean, he is genuinely modest. I mean, you know, a couple of occasions I talked to him in the office. We actually sort of had talks about, not long talks, we talked about football, but also about life and about like his love of dog walking on the beach, you know. And I think it's Buddy, that dog, and he's got the sort of the initial of, was it Rodney? One but I can't remember, but he's got the sort of the dog's initial on his arm. There's a real human side to Eddie Howe, you know, the family man as well as the manager, and that's probably one of the reasons why he's such a good manager. And you can see with, I mean, look, you see these players week in, week out, and you can see how they have improved. But I look at a player like Almiron, who was crying out for someone to put his arm, you know, he talks to people at Atlanta, to put his arm around Almiron.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, he makes good players better. You know, Longstaff's trained on. I mean, I know Longstaff has done so much work individually and with people at the club and developed, and that's huge credit.
I think Joe Linton's the main one for me. The transformation he's made of him is simply incredible.
Absolutely, and Fabian Schär as well. I mean, I just think there are. I mean, we haven't really mentioned Callum Wilson, and I know the fans are occasionally a little bit split on it. I think he's your best centre forward. I think when he is fit, he's an absolute beast. You know, the way he can. Don't like to use the word bully, but the way that he can actually really work over other centre halves. He's got that strength. He's got that pace. He's very intelligent. He's reading the game. Isak still looks a bit raw. I don't know whether he's best coming off the flank or through the middle. If a team's playing a high line, then Isak flanks if he's pacing behind. But I think if Wilson's fit, then he is terrific. But just coming back to Eddie, I just think the way he coaches is a very engaging character. I think he's tougher than people think. I think there is a steel to him, even though he's always quiet with us.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, Henry, because we've spoken to a few Bournemouth fans. Obviously, when Eddie took the job and things like that, we wanted to know more about him and his managerial criteria, what he would bring to the club, etc. But what they did say was, in front of the camera, excuse me, and in public, he's that kind of character, but he does have this steeliness to him in the dressing room, behind the scenes. When he needs to be hard on players, he will be. But obviously, we don't see that side of him. And I think that's a good trait to have.
Yeah, and I think a lot of managers are like that. A lot of the good managers are like that. They know how to go through the gears. I quite like the way. I mean, I do like a bit of passion in the technical area. I like managers who go through the gears emotionally, because whether it's to rev up fans, not that you guys need revving up, or the players as well. And I think Tyndall as well. I think, the two of them are very much a combination. I mean, both times I interviewed him at Bournemouth, Tyndall came and stood in the corner just sort of listening in. You very much got the impression that they worked, that they're a double act. Obviously, Eddie is the main man, makes the decision, but he's got a fantastic sounding board in Tyndall.
Well, Tyndall doesn't really get the praise I think he deserves, because you're right, they are a double act, and I think Tyndall brings that passion in the manager's area during games. We've seen incidents already with Chelsea, Liverpool at Anfield, and things like that, where things have just boiled over a little bit. But Tyndall sort of, if anyone's having to go at Eddie, Tyndall then steps in front of Eddie straight away to block him off. Eddie then goes away and just remains all calm. And I really love that double act that they've got, and I think Eddie puts a lot of trust in Tyndall. As well as Graham Jones as well behind the scenes. Jones pops comes into the technical area at times. The three of them have conversations. He's got coaching staff in the stands all over the place making notes. There was one in front of me against Liverpool at the weekend, just making notes and then going down at half time. It's just fantastic, the setup he's got. And I think he deserves this cup final, does Eddie, to just what he's done at the football club so far, and it can only get better. But if we look at the cup final, Henry, from what you're saying, would you play Callum Wilson instead of Isak?
100%. Oh, absolutely. I would just, he'll be up against Varane and Martinez, who you need a tough character to play against them. I mean, I like Isak, but I mean, these are real wily campaigners. Varane in the Champions League, Martinez for his country at clubs. Yeah. Just one quick thing on Graham Jones. I think Longstaff, who was talking about his influence on him coaching-wise. And again, that is a reminder of how well Eddie surrounds himself by people with these individual skills, because Graham Jones is a terrific coach. I mean, we've seen it down the years. But just coming back to, I find if they play I'm sure they'll play a back four, and Luke Shaw left back, and I would imagine it will be Wan-Bissaka's been playing really well for them. Darlow played the last game, whether that's because they were rotating before the Barcelona second leg. But yeah, I would play Wilson. I'm just a big fan of him. I've sort of interviewed him down the years, and there's a tough guy in there, and this will be his stage. When he walks out the tunnel, comes out the dressing room, the Alf Ramsey statue, Sir Alf Ramsey bust, and he walks out there, and he walks out into the sunshine, because it's always sunny at Wembley for some reason, and there are just 90,000 people in there. Callum Wilson will you'll just see him. He'll be like Trippier. He'll absolutely love it. And there's just something about that man, the performer. It's a big game for him, because Callum's 29 or so, is he? How many more moments is he going to get like this? Particularly if I can see Newcastle United at some point buying another centre forward, because that's your direction of travel. I'd play Callum Wilson. I have no inside information, no knowledge. I don't know if the players have even been told yet. But what a player. He's just held back by injuries, because he's got it there. He's got that sharpness of finish. He's got that pace, that strength. And most importantly, he's got the mentality.
Yeah. He'll be 31 the day after the cup final.
Well, there you go. So look, the clock is ticking. I know he looks after himself well, but he's, this is a big moment for him. So, Isak's 10 years younger or so. He's got a decade to sort of develop into, and he will, I'm sure, become a fine player, particularly with Eddie's coaching. But I just think this is a Callum Wilson day.
Well, Callum Wilson, I mean, me and Alex have spoke about him, and Billy as well on the shows, and he had an illness at the beginning of the year. Now, Newcastle as a club haven't disclosed what that illness was, but Eddie Howe did say it was a very, very serious and debilitating illness. Now, whether that was COVID or whatever, we don't know, but he just hasn't looked as sharp, post-World Cup that he did pre-World Cup. And I think it's taken a lot out of him. I mean, Alex, you've said many times that he just seems to have lost a yard.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I've seen him look himself was his substitute appearance for England at the World Cup. He was pressing, he was aggressive, pacey, and I've not seen that Callum Wilson since that game, since the England game. He still looks okay, but he looks sort of 70-80% of what he was doing before the World Cup. That sort of reaction time, aggression. Because like you said, he's obviously great at playing against more aggressive centre backs, but he's not the largest centre forward in the world. So playing against the back three or two huge centre halves, it can be tough. It just feels like he's not quite as competent as he was. Whether it's the illness or whether it's just maybe it's us, maybe we're just remembering him playing better.
Could be, yeah.
But that's something that people are thinking about. I think he scored maybe once since his return as well. So it's just playing on our minds a little bit.
Yeah, I can understand that. And I know the fans have been slightly split on it because they often come up to you and say, why are you always sort of banging the drum for Callum Wilson? I just think he's got that mentality. But look, Eddie Howe, with his sports scientists, with the medical staff, they will be, players, they know everything about players in terms of their fitness, in terms of blood levels and whatever. But I tell you what, he wouldn't have been the last one to come back from the World Cup with a virus of sorts. And look, I hope whatever it was, that he's put it behind him and he's healthy long term.
I actually agree about the going against Varane and Martinez. I think if we look back to the final home game of last season where we beat Arsenal, Callum Wilson was absolutely superb and ran those centre backs ragged. Very, very physical. He's an old style centre forward for me. He loves the physicality of it all. He loves getting under the skin of centre backs and things like that. If I was to pick a striker for Sunday's final, I agree. I would say Callum Wilson starts because I don't think Isak has the physicality to go against those two, if that makes sense. I think when Isak is running at defenders, he's brilliant. The pace, and he combines well with St. Maximin sometimes, and you can see they're working on things in training. But to get under the defender's skin, Callum Wilson has to be the man, I think.
Who's the better header of the ball?
Wilson, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
It's one of Isak's kryptonites. Is despite being 6'3", he's actually got a really low aerial duel rate. He's quite poor at heading, which is bizarre. He was not very great at Real Sociedad either. So it's definitely Wilson by far.
That is exactly why I would play him against De Gea. Because De Gea is a terrific goalkeeper. The shot stopping, you saw it the other afternoon against Leicester in the first 20 minutes. But if there is, it's a bit harsh, so he's got a vulnerability. He does come out and punch, but actually you can if you can whip in some crosses. I think the interesting thing across the front line is going to be Sam Maximan against, if it is Wan-Bissaka or Dalot, it depends how it goes against Barcelona on Thursday. You would think Sam Maximan really could get at that defense. Particularly Dalot likes to push up. Sam Maximan, will track it, can get in behind him. And then over on the other side, Almiron against Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw's been probably in their top Manchester United. This is one of the things, can I say as a journalist, whenever I cover Manchester United against Newcastle United, I learned from starting out about 30 years ago, if I mentioned United in copy, I would have, half of sort of Gateshead writing to me, emailing me or tweeting me.
Well, Sky, you're advertising the game as Manchester United versus Newcastle and not putting United. And then I've seen a lot of social media posts saying, we were founded in 1892. Man United were later on. We are the United. And listen, it doesn't bother me. It's Newcastle is my team. Whether United's on the end or not, I don't particularly care. But it does get to some fans.
I totally understand it, and it was so much easier when Manchester United were winning the title because I could just call them champions.
Yeah,
and then it champions again, sort of Newcastle, sort of in copy. But yeah, I always now when I write it and the office go, well, hang on a sec, why are you keeping on calling Manchester United? Manchester United want to call them Manchester United. So we've got to differentiate because if they're playing Chelsea or Liverpool or Arsenal, I call them United, as I would with you. Anyway, that's just a little sort of journalistic. I totally understand it. That chant "There's only one United" isn't true.
No. Alex?
Well, there is West Ham and Leeds United also in the league as well. And many of our songs that the fans will sing passionately in the stands also include just the word United. So it is, I can see why it gets to a lot of us. It's as you said, when Manchester United were on their perch, it was difficult to argue with. But now, especially with depending on what happens on Sunday, maybe it will start changing. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Rashford's going to go against Trippier. If you were Ten Hag, would you possibly move Marcus over to the other side against Dan Burn? And the only reason I'm saying that is because of obviously Rashford's pace frightens me, whichever side he's on, because Kieran Trippier is not the quickest in the world either, but his footballing brain is fantastic. He intercepts passes that we don't know is even coming. But Dan Burn against pace, do you think that could be a problem?
Of all the positions Marcus Rashford can play across the front three, or ignoring the number 10 position, right wing's his least effective.
Right.
I mean, he always says he prefers coming in off the left. Traditionally, he's done that so well. But I just think in the form that he is in, the absence of Martial, obviously Ronaldo's gone. Weghorst is not going to run in behind. Ten Hag is using Weghorst now as a sort of slightly ungainly, but actually quite effective number 10. He helps out in midfield as well, where there could be a bit of battle with your three there. I would be surprised if Ten Hag doesn't play him through the middle. I just think he's so effective there. That pacing behind, he's better also now getting the ball to feet. You saw with the pass from Fernandes, the pass from Fred for his 2 goals against Leicester. That pace he's got. The first goal he scored was when he was playing as a centre forward. Second goal he moved slightly inside, but he was playing more off the left as Sancho had come on. Sancho played as a number 10. I mean, Ten Hag's been playing Sancho as a number 10. He's been very effective. He'd been playing Bruno on the right, and he was fantastic against Leicester. He had something like 85 touches, and you think Bruno's more central player. I'd be surprised if Garnacho's involved. I mean, he got hooked at halftime the other day. He's a kid, new contract, fantastic talent, but I think he'll maybe be used off the bench. So maybe that means that Rashford does start out wide. I mean, they've got all these options. Personally, I think Rashford, 24 goals this season. I think he's best through the middle at the moment, but he'll still be effective off the left. But I've been really impressed with Botman, and I'm amazed that more clubs didn't come in for him. Teams that were in the Champions League, and not simply about his reading of danger and his aerial strength, but his ability on the ball. He's got that switch, which he can ping out to us if it's San Maximo on the left. That tends to be more the switch he plays, isn't it? Slightly from right to left. And
he's good at finding a Miggy run. When he goes up, bombs down the right wing, and then once it's over there, we've got a nice little triangle with Trippier and whoever the midfielder is. It works incredibly well.
Yeah, but you're going to have to read Rashford as well, and that is if you do slightly push up, even if you're not pushing up much, halfway through your half, Karras is going to have to come off his line very quickly because Rashford is quicker than anything you've got at the back.
Which is where I think we're going to miss Nick Pope, because he is fantastic at doing that. Yes, he made an error against Liverpool, but all season he has been doing that, coming out as a sweeper, if you like, and he's so quick off his line. Compared to when Dubravka came on against Liverpool, Dubravka was very, very hesitant in what he was doing. He was thinking, should I, and then making a decision to go. Whereas Nick Pope, he's out like a flash, and I think that puts Botman and Cher's mind at rest that they know if there's a ball over the top, they've also got Pope backing them up, which it'd be interesting to see if Karius does that or whether he's working on that in training. And Eddie has sort of noted that the ball's in behind for Rashford. He's going to have to be quick out there.
Yeah, I feel for Nick Pope. Obviously, the rules are the rules. I think Gary Lineker said, let's change the rules. You can't do that mid-competition, mid-season. So, no, I feel for him because he's just been probably in your top 3 players this season. Yeah. I mean, there seem to be some games that I was going to, and I haven't been to St James's Park for a month, and I've been walking into the ground, and you bump into fans, and they say, Nick Pope still hasn't conceded since you were last here, mate. Yeah. And he went on that. It was an incredible run of sort of 600-700 minutes, even more. Something, conceding. I'm sure you know.
I think it was close to 10 hours. I think he got
10. I mean, that is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, what's that? 11 matches or something? My math's terrible. But
the thing is, Henry, you look at that 10 hours and you think, right, but not a lot of them games, because obviously we do match reviews and play ratings and things like that, and we find it very difficult to mark Nick Pope sometimes because he hasn't made a lot of saves because the balls are blocked before they get to him. Obviously, when he's called for, he is. I mean, that save against Crystal Palace late on at Selhurst Park, he hadn't had much to do in that game, and then pulls off a brilliant save. But most of the time, certainly before Christmas anyway, we were just thinking, what are we marking? Because he hasn't had a save to make because the defence had been so solid.
But also one example, he would be, or he is clearly, but even more so if he had sort of walked out of the cup final, of just persistence. You know, he was a bit like Dan Burn. He went to non-league. I think Nick Pope studied at a college down south. You know, he didn't have the easiest or fast-tracked academy approach into the game. And you just admire people like that who just through sheer endeavour, a bit like Dan Burn, has got to the top. And it would have been a great sort of accolade for him and his family, or a great moment for him and his family to see him walking out in a cup final at Wembley. What a special moment that would be. So I feel for him on that front, but, you know, the rules are there.
It's the Southgate curse, you see. Southgate was in the stands again.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, Pope just struggles when he's being watched by Southgate for some reason. Obviously, he made the blunder when he made his England appearance recently, and then Southgate was visiting. I think he made he was a guest at a charity dinner on the night before, so he was in the stands for the game. And obviously, it's the second time in a row. So maybe Southgate's the curse.
Well, fair play to Southgate for getting up from Harrogate, because getting through those roadworks at the top of the A1M when you're trying to get into Newcastle, he did, when you go past the Angel of the North.
Yeah.
I just think the Southgate's interest, and I'm sure he's not just watching Pope, you know, Trippier's up against 6 or 7 outstanding right backs for England contention, and Trippier's always in there because of what he brings, not simply his crossing these dead balls, but as we touched on earlier, his character.
Well, Southgate actually paid a visit to the training ground as well. Spent a lot of time with Eddie Howe that day, which was really good of him. And I think Eddie said in a recent interview that he had a very, very strong, good conversation with Gareth Southgate and has a lot of respect for him. So I think Eddie has that kind of reputation amongst all the managers, really. That obviously what he did when he wasn't at work, going to Atletico Madrid, spending a bit of time with Simeone, etc. So yeah, it was great to see Gareth there. But I think where do you stand on the Nick Pope, Jordan Pickford issue for England?
It's not even an issue. Pickford's number one. I mean, that's Southgate will say that. Everyone around the England camp will say that. I mean, it's fantastic that Ramsdale and Pope are there, and they are. You know, there's strength in depth. But I'll tell you one thing. I don't really speak much. I don't speak much English, but I speak a smattering of French, and French television occasionally say, look, we've got the rights to cover England and England training. Can you come and stand behind the goal and mutter a few cliches, whatever the French for cliche is, and when the England team are training, and you are literally standing 4 yards away from Pickford's goal, and you just and Pope and Ramsdale, they're obviously they're great competitors. They're doing fantastically for their clubs. The league table shows that. But when you see Pickford close up, when you hear him, when you hear his body crunch against the ground time after time, diving left, diving right, claiming the ball, his language is fairly lively as well when you're close up. He's got this will to win. And then when you step back into the stands and sort of, when I'm there sort of covering matches, Pickford has never let England down. So, yeah.
No, he hasn't, to be fair. He hasn't.
Completely right on Pickford.
Okay. Alex, any more questions?
I was just going to mention the sort of underdog narrative. Earlier on in the season, obviously, Manchester United were struggling, and they got some form going with some rather large signings. And we were having a great run of form, unbeaten. We were in the top 3. And the narrative was a bit different. The narrative was sort of more towards us at that point. Whereas now it's shifted. Obviously, Rashford is absolutely on fire. There's the takeover stories about Manchester United as well. So Manchester United going into this final are going to get a lot more coverage. Do you think that suits us again, being slightly more underdogs? The pressure's off. We've got Karius. We've got Manchester United getting a lot of coverage. The pressure's essentially off us to just go out there and just try our best. Yeah,
I think isn't your media day today? So I imagine that will ramp up on the Newcastle United stories and focus. And I mean, it's a strange. I mean, I almost keep a post-it sticker on my dashboard of my car to remind me what competition I'm going to the game that night. You know, there was a turnover of League Cup, FA Cup, a European game, and then back to the domestic league. It is crazy. So look, it will ramp up again probably post. I mean, actually, the focus on Manchester United now will all be to do with the Barcelona game, and then that will build up sort of after that. I don't think when you pick up newspapers or go on websites or podcasts or anything from Friday morning onwards, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, I don't think you'll be short of Newcastle content.
Interesting.
No, I hope so.
Yeah,
you're a fantastic story. First, you're very easy. You're a very good club to deal with. You've got a fantastic director of communications. He's brilliant, very engaging. There's such a buzz around the place at the moment. People love going up to Newcastle. I mean, my only regret is that I always drive home back south after games, and there's always a slight reluctance or slight sadness when you drive over the bridge and you look to the left and you look down to the quayside and you think, well, I've had some nights down there when you had that extraordinary boat with the tuxedo princess.
The tuxedo, yeah.
With a revolving dance floor, which maybe I had once a lemonade too many, but it seemed to be on a slant. So you're going around and you sort of on one side. Anyway, so look, night out in Newcastle, and you can see why away fans love going there. I still think it's wrong. You put people up the top. I think it's against Premier League rules. I think you still should be behind the goal, but that's a quirk, and I understand that.
I think they are going to move the away section now. I think there has been talk about moving the away fans, but I'm not sure when that is going to take place. There were
murmurings of it, but we don't know where or when.
Yeah. But look, you guys are. It's such a great place to go, and it's interesting because I've been going to your ground for 35 years as a journalist, and just seeing that area, particularly on the left as you walk up to the ground, just literally opposite the Bobby Robson statue, the Shearer statue. That area there, which I think was it Newcastle Brewery?
It used to be the brewery,
yeah, and now it's appropriate. It's now full of students. It probably was before. And I was talking to, in fact, the amazing guys, the really huge, tall guy, very charismatic guy who works at the food bank. And I was talking to him, and he was saying the percentage of, when Newcastle United are doing well in the Premier League, the Newcastle University, I'm assuming Northumberland, the other universities and colleges are just absolutely inundated with even more applications. So it just adds the buzz to the town. I mean, I've got children from the south who just want to go to Newcastle, obviously because it's got good academics, a good university, but because of the nightlife, because of the buzz around it. Although, I've got to ask you this. You've asked me a few questions. You can ask them. Does anyone wear coats in Newcastle?
No.
Is the nearest coat shop in Harrogate or Edinburgh? Because whenever I go up, there's 2 foot of snow on the ground and people are wandering around in Shearer shirts. It's
bizarre. I mean, obviously, as I'm sort of getting older in life, I do tend to wear a coat nowadays, but it is well known that obviously we have a different sort of bodily reaction to cold weather. We see it as summer for some reason. And there is those crazy fans that will, especially when we go away from home or whatever, but they'll take the tops off. And I don't understand that in any shape or form. Standing watching a football match in -2 temperatures, topless. It's just crazy for me. But I think it's a different mentality. The cold weather doesn't seem to bother Northerners as much as it does from people down south, because obviously I think summertime, you guys down south get the hotter weather. I mean, certainly London does anyway. It's a fact. But I think it's just the pure passion. I think that they want to have the shirts there. They want everybody to see them. They don't want to cover them up. They want everybody to know that the Newcastle fans, and come hell or high water, they will wear the shirts, and they won't put them over jumpers or anything like that. They think if a football shirt is there, it's there to be worn as a football shirt.
Right. So if you just wear the Newcastle shirt and jeans in the cold north east, as you call it, and then you come down, I mean, with respect, it's not exactly the Copacabana in the middle of London, but okay, so say it's a couple of degrees. Does this mean you're going to be coming down in sort of shorts and flip-flops twirling your shirt.
Oh, hell yes. Hell yes. You'll be amazed, Henry, right? How many fans will walk up Wembley Way in shorts, in Newcastle tops, in flip-flops, in various costumes, probably. You know what the Newcastle fans are like. We will savor this moment, over the whole weekend. Like I said earlier, there's Newcastle fans already in London, getting the Wembley tours and things like that. And the buzz is massive. So I don't think it matters if it was pouring down with rain and a hurricane. We'd still come down in shorts and Newcastle shirts.
I think it's pride and pettiness at the same time. It's equal measures of it, because
it is.
Obviously, when you sort of see Anfield and Old Trafford and the Etihad and some of the London clubs, you struggle to see. You see coats and camera phones and different coloured jackets. Whereas, we pride our stadium and our fans whenever we travel, and you just see black and white, and it's how it's always been. And whenever I travel up, it's got to be, I'm slightly from I'm from slightly further down south in the northeast, so I maybe will wear a black and white shirt over a hoodie, but still the black and white's got to be present. You can't just be in a jacket with a camera phone out. You've got to have your scarf, and you've got to have the black and white. It's got to be represented.
Yeah, I mean, Henry,
how it's always been done.
Henry, you'll know what the trains will be like. The cars going down the motorway at the weekend. The scarves will be out the window. The shirts hanging out the window. Everything literally will be black and white heading down. And we make fun of, obviously, Man United, and we've been saying, it's a home game for them because most of their fans live in London. But the whole motorways, the trains, the buses will be covered in black and white. And it's just one of those moments that we're going to savor. Win or lose, we're going to have a fantastic weekend celebrating being in the cup final. But on the game itself, where do you think Newcastle can win this game, Henry? If you were being 100% honest, where in this match can you see, given Manchester United's form at the minute, what is Newcastle's strongest point to go and win this game?
I mean, if Saint-Maximin's on his game, and depending whether it's Dalot or the more defensively secure Wan-Bissaka is playing, again, depending on Thursday's game, I think you've got a chance there. I think you're just going to have to, Manchester United will be the favourites. I've never ever seen Manchester United as the underdogs. I just think there's just, because of them, because of their nature, because of their self-belief, self-worth, call it what you want, they will believe. But your defence is strong enough. You've got a great threat. I mean, Shah, I think, has he scored a few goals for you at set pieces? Botman should really be contributing there as well.
They're kind of not, though. That's been one of the issues, Henry, is that Shah scored a screamer against Nottingham Forest, and since then, the three big lads haven't scored anything. Well, Byrne got one in the cup with his feet,
but they should be, particularly with, I assume Trippier will take the ones the right.
Does,
So, I mean, maybe a Longstaff run for midfield. It's, he's got to get past Casemiro, who's just is a master. They'll have Weghorst, presumably, if he's playing in a number 10. Ten Hag really likes him there. I mean, we haven't really mentioned Eric Ten Hag, but he's been outstanding, the way he's transformed Manchester United. So, look, it's just going to be, you say London's going to all be in black and white. The footage when you last won a final, probably the footage was in black and white. So this is huge. And I tell you what, if you do, whatever happens, when I'm walking up Wembley Way, there's a really lovely lady with her daughter who sits just to the right of where the time seats are, and often sort of nod to her and just have a chat, how's it going or whatever. And she's got her flag, and she's obviously seen a lot at the club. She's probably seen a lot in the area. And the northeast has taken a sort of battering economically, even if there is all this sort of social and emotional vibrancy around the city. Sorry. And I'll be thinking of them and what it means to them, walking up there, mother and daughter, that sort of pride in the team. I hope they've got tickets. I mean, the season ticket holders, they're always there. And just how much it will mean for them because of what they've seen the club go through, the Mike Ashley years, what the city, I'm sure, has gone through. I'm not an economist or whatever, but I know that you've taken a hit in certain areas. So just what it means, this is... Whenever there's a final, I always write it from the perspective of the winning fan and what it means you don't want a journalist to say, "Oh, this was good" or whatever. You want to know what it means to the individual. So you guys waited a long time for this moment. I know a lot of this is sort of professional for you, but it's also a passion for you. Look, you're there in your Newcastle shirt. I can't even see a coat hanging up in the background because I know you haven't got one, because you wait until you get to the 40 and then someone comes and gives you your coat, and then you have 10 years to see whether you actually want to wear that coat. And maybe in your late 50s you'll put it on, and maybe you'll wear it in the garden. Then eventually, when you get to your 60s and 70s, you'll wear the coat. But that, how much this means to you. When I go into the press room, one of the joys of going into your press rooms, obviously sort of chatting with some of the, the local journalists, and their balance that they have of a passion for Newcastle United, wanting Newcastle United to do well, and then also having to take that step back and view it with perspective. That's really difficult to do that. I can come in and I'll inevitably have that perspective because I'm not a Newcastle fan. I'm not caught up in the emotions of the area. But that your coverage, the journalists that you've got up there are fantastic. The way they cover, whether it's in the local paper, whether it's on the podcast, you guys. I just think you do a fantastic. You don't do it as a service. You do it because you want to inform and because you're passionate about sharing what you do. Yeah. One of the great joys, and it was a huge sadness when the amazing Kathy passed away. I mean, that was the sorts of call, going to the press room, getting a cup of tea off Kathy. She's an amazing lady. May she rest in peace. And I hope she's looking down from on high and just seeing the boys do her proud on Sunday. But bumping into Malcolm McDonald. I mean, when Malcolm McDonald came, when he played for Arsenal, when he played in South, I mean, he was just what a player. And then he played for you, and just seeing Malcolm there, and you just see the years have passed, and Malcolm always still looks young. He doesn't move as fleet-footed as he did in his playing days, but I love that about Newcastle. I love the fact that the former players are so embedded. I love passing the Shearer statue. I love looking at Alan Shearer's tweets and how passionate he is about it. And I always get the impression he wants to use his influence at Match of the Day to make sure that Newcastle United are on first, even if it's a 0-0 draw and nothing.
Well, it's really,
you are a special club, and good luck on Sunday.
I mean, it's great that the former players are all getting back involved now. I got a photograph with Lauren Robert on Saturday before, outside the ground, and seeing all these old players. Steve Watson was there, saw John Beresford, and the game before, Ginola and Shea Givens often back, and these players just weren't welcome previous regime. So it's so nice to see them all coming back and still having that passion for Newcastle United. I watched last night, I watched the Bobby Robson documentary again with my fiance, because she does a lot of work for this channel behind the scenes, and she wanted to know about Bobby more. So we put that on, and it was so emotional, because I was just thinking about the cup final and then the end when, it showed Bobby, passing on, and, what he'll be thinking, looking down, and, and obviously, Dave Harrison, who you knew, Henry, who was a big part of this channel before he passed away, and many others who've passed on, will be looking down. And it's just such an emotional moment for the Newcastle fans, as well as as well as the passion. It can be very emotional, win or lose, really.
You did Bobby proud last weekend, 18th of February, on his birthday. And it seems like only yesterday that when Jermaine Genius, who also was born on the 18th of February, I can remember when, I think he was like 18, 19 years old when you signed him from Nottingham Forest. And he was on the stage. And Jermaine Genius, as he is now, he was very considered, very measured, intelligent teenager, making these comments. And Bobby must have been in his 60s, and he was all enthusiasm, and it was all verbal fireworks and everything about passion and everything. And that was Bobby. And having had the privilege to interview him down the years, he's just one of the great men of British life, as well as of British sport as well. And look, his legacy lives on in his foundation, which Mark, his son, and
absolutely, and
Lady Robson, and Liz, who Liz Longstaff, the work that she does. It's 18 million pounds they've raised. Is it 400 patients go into
it's
Bobby Robson?
Absolutely incredible.
Every year.
Yeah,
that is, you always want to leave, without being too grand, you always want to leave a legacy, whether it's your kids, whether it's the work you've done, whether it's the memories of your friends. Bobby's done all that times 10, and 18 million pounds raised. I mean, just anyway, a legend, and he'll definitely be looking down.
Well, I mean,
jig.
The people that were in that interview, you know, you look at sort of Gaza. I mean, he treated Gaza like a son. Even after the footballing days, he would always sort of, Gaza said he would ring him up twice a day, or he would send somebody to check on him, and Gaza would say, has Bobby sent you? He'd say, yes, he has. You know, and you know, Pep, the way he speaks about him, Jose Mourinho never calls him Bobby. It's always Mr. Robson. And you know, I laughed when Sir Alex was saying on the documentary that there was one day he got a phone call, and he picked up the phone, and it was Sir Bobby, and he said, Sir Alex said, "Oh, how are you doing?" And he said, "Where you're at?" And Bobby said, "I'm at your front door." And he was just driving through, and he obviously thought, "I'll go and have a chat with Sir Alex," and he just turned up at his front door. But an amazing man, and I think you know, Kevin Keegan's still with us, you know, and he will he'll be so excited for the game as well, you know, seeing Newcastle in the final. He's been up a few times and done some talkings. So this is just massive. It's probably, you know, the League Cup, like I said earlier, is taking a bit of a battering, but for us as Newcastle United fans, this is massive.
When you were at Maiden Castle training in Durham, I organised the interview Kevin Keegan, and I went there, and training finished at 11 o'clock, and I chatted to the people. I said, "Oh yeah, Kevin's just finished training, just go and have a cup of tea in the pavilion and then he'll be over." 2 hours later, he was still signing autographs. He was just, you know, and this was pre-selfies, he was signing autographs. It's in wheelchairs, and he was talking to them, and there are about 3,000 there, and you know that it's quite a busy road that actually runs past.
It is, yeah.
People, cars parked up on the on the verges, on the banks. I think it's one of the few training grounds that I've ever been to which has got a sort of fast food stand for the fans, because there must have been about 2-3.
Well, I live in Durham, Henry, so I know exactly what it was like. Maiden Castle has developed since then massively. It's a massive complex now with training grounds, you know, hockey and things like that, as well as cricket pitch, all sorts. And I remember going there one day, and literally the other side of Durham City, there was queues to get to Maiden Castle, because obviously they had to go through the city and then to Maiden Castle, and you had to park 2-3 miles away, and there was 2,000-3,000 people nearly every day for training sessions. The buzz and the hype was incredible. You just wouldn't get that at any other club.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I bumped into Philippe Albert at the World Cup. I think he was working for Belgian TV, and I just said, you know, that we were just reminiscing about those days and sort of Newcastle, and particularly that era. Was it you probably got the tapes or the videos, or was it Hawaii 5-0?
Hawaii 5-0, yeah, all of that. The entertainers and
yeah, and it was good. It was great. Look, and you've got a buzz. There's more pragmatism to the team now, because that's the way Eddie's got that. But there's still that flair there, and the buzz around the ground. So
But that maintained as well, despite you know, times being difficult under Ashley. That persisted, because you look at players like Joey Barton, who obviously played for a number of clubs. You've even got Papi Cisse, whose children have to keep because he makes a fool of himself online, saying, "Dad, you don't play for Newcastle anymore. You're not their number 9. He's playing in the 2nd division in France." And they're always tweeting about us on social media. And it's players from any era seem to follow the club and still feel like a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, on a somber note, you did a tribute to Christian Atsu. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that is just desperate, but it shows nothing can console a grieving family in circumstances like that. But to know that the supporters still have a player, you know, in their hearts, in their minds, in their thoughts, I think that will provide, if any comfort can be provided in such desperate circumstances.
Well, his partner was at that game, Henry, on Saturday. His family were there. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you know, she was visibly, obviously devastated, and especially when you know, the round of applause, and then the Liverpool fans, you know, some Newcastle fans disagreed with it. I thought it was a lovely gesture. They started singing "You'll Never Walk Alone," and you know, they've been on social media saying we sang that in, you know, for him. And we did the same, I think, for a Hillsborough thing when they were remembering Hillsborough victims. We sang it. We sang "You'll Never Walk Alone" in tribute to them. So some Newcastle fans just said they should have just clapped. I disagree. I think it's not just Liverpool's. That is a footballing anthem, and I was I was actually pleased to hear that from the Liverpool fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's their show of support for people in distressed times. So no, I think that's just a matter of respect. But
yeah,
no, and I wouldn't expect anything less from your fans and from the club to show such support.
Alex, any more questions?
Not well. There is one topic I just want to mention as well. Obviously, we lost Czech Tiote, so we've got two players we've lost.
Yeah, absolutely.
From a similar era, and it's a shame. Hopefully, we don't lose any more anytime soon because they were both very young. Obviously, I think Czech was I think he had died of a heart attack. I think it was, which was unfortunate. But footballing question, Mark Leyland, who we obviously got from Liverpool, our first team analyst, Eddie managed to bring in. Previously worked with him at Burnley, has unfortunately just been poached by Manchester City. So we are on the hunt for another first team analyst. So for the first sort of 12 months of the takeover and Eddie Howe and everything, it was all about bringing new people in, whether it was staff, players. And in the last couple of sort of weeks or so, obviously Shelvey, Wood, and now we've had a first team analyst poached. It's our first real experience of losing sort of whether it's staff or players. And obviously we're going into the cup final at the weekend. How do you think Eddie and the club are going to deal with this sort of refreshing of everything and changing of the guard, whether it be staff or player?
Eddie will see it as an opportunity. He'll see it as he's a front foot, glass half full character. If the glass is ever half full in Newcastle, I think he will be absolutely. He'll go and look to find someone, just upgrade, work with the executives. I wouldn't worry about losing the occasional individual.
It'll probably be quite a rapid turnover at Newcastle, I would imagine, sometimes with various positions being filled and then people going other places. But the good thing is, I think Newcastle United now have that pulling power to bring in excellent people, so they can replace quality with quality, and that's what we're looking for on the pitch as well. Because obviously our bench isn't particularly strong, and I think over time that's where we'll be able to make substitutions where we bring off a quality player, we replace them for quality. But just a couple more, Henry, and then we'll let you go. Just with Bruno coming back for Newcastle, that settles certainly our centre backs down a bit more. We've really missed him the last 3 games. How do you think he could be an influence to Newcastle in that midfield battle on Sunday?
He'll love the occasion. He'll love the setting. He'll love the opposition. He'll love the support. I have to say, I knew he was a good player before. I didn't realise quite how good he was playing for you in the sort of the frenzy of the Premier League, with the pace and the physicality and the pressing. I love the way he takes the ball under pressure. He's so positive with it. He wins a tackle as well as uses the ball. He's a terrific all-round midfielder. So I think he's been inspired. I like the way you're sort of asking how long I've got. I mean, I just assume you've got taxis at the door waiting to take you to the station.
We wish.
Yeah. No, you're the ones who've got to get down to London and start partying and getting those fountains in Trafalgar Square.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy, to be honest, Henry, getting transport, because a lot of Newcastle fans booked hotels and transport after the Leicester game. In the quarterfinal, before the semi-finals even kicked off.
See, but when we're really not joking, genuinely, there were a lot of people who booked preemptively, sort of possible. I know a few people that booked after the Bournemouth game, and that was several rounds ago.
But we've got somebody that comes on the channel, Henry, that lives in Qatar, and he booked a flight and hotel reservations, but unfortunately he didn't manage to get a ticket. But he booked that well in advance, so he was able to cancel.
Right. Oh, okay. I thought he was going to come anywhere and just sit in a fountain. And
he was thinking about it. He was thinking about it. But I think his partner might have had something to say about that, to be honest. Final question to you, Henry, or the obvious one: who's going to win the cup?
Oh, you might need to cut this one off. I think it will be tighter than people think.
Yeah,
I think Rashford in this sort of form. If Shah and Botman can deal with Rashford, then you've got a chance. But Manchester United are favourites for a reason.
Yeah. But
I think this is, your development. I mean, you're ahead of schedule, but it's brilliant what you're doing. The fact
we're ahead, yeah.
If you said at the start of the season, right, you'll have a losing cup final and get in the Champions League, you'd absolutely take that, and have some amazing atmosphere. The war flags thing, I think, is brilliant as well. I love the atmosphere around the place.
Well, just a point as well. I think war flags have been approved to go to Wembley, so I think they're actually putting a display up.
Yeah, they have been approved.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it would have been a scandal if they'd been told not to. I mean, we saw through COVID how important supporters were. Those empty stadiums. I did about 140, 150 games behind closed doors, totally soulless. So fans mean everything, and absolutely bring the flags. It will be quite an occasion. I think you'll win. I think your fans will win. I still just shade Manchester United's team, partly because of their bench.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think as honest as us Newcastle fans are, it is going to be a tough game. We haven't been playing well in recent weeks, and yes, we've been unbeaten until we played Liverpool, but we've had a rocky spell. But I think this cup final may well be an opportunity to turn that around. If we do get beat, then as long as we've put an effort in and we've given everything we can, then that's football. At the end of the day, the better team will win. That's how it works. But I'm going into the game with a little bit of optimism, I think, because I think so many things have gone against us in recent weeks, like the goalkeeper situation and things like that, and a little drop in form, and Callum Wilson being off his game. I just have this hunch that things might all just come back on Sunday, and Manchester United will get a shock. I think we seem to play better against the top teams than we do the smaller teams in the Premier League. So the whole thing about Wembley, you're talking about Bruno there and the occasion, and Callum and Trippier walking out and seeing all the black and white at one end of the ground. It could go either way, and I think you're right. If we can nullify Rashford and compete in the midfield, I think we have a chance.
If you got pace in transition, which you have with Saint-Maximin and Longstaff, even though he's not overtly fast, he's not an absolute flyer. With those long legs, he eats up the ground. And then Almiron as well. If you press Fred and the press starts and Fred gives the ball away, which sent Ten Hag mad in the last match. He was really unimpressed with Fred's giving the ball away. If you're quick in transition, you've absolutely got a chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's a game that should provide a bit of space, hopefully. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Henry, thank you so much for taking the time out to join us today. It's been an absolute pleasure, as usual. Well, let's just hope. Well, I'm hoping, and I'm sure Alex is as well, that the cup comes northeast way on Sunday night. But I'm sure it'll be a fantastic game, whatever. But thank you very much for taking the time this morning, Henry, and hopefully we'll speak very soon.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for inviting me on. And as a club and as support, thanks for giving me so much to write about.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much, Henry.
Cheers, guys.